last call, Caden, Colford, Jace, Hodge. One of the most important episodes we're going to have all semester, all year, the Super Bowl. But before we hop into the Super Bowl, we have some hometown action. But we actually took the road, went to Rolla, Missouri first, then came back a short way towards Indianapolis and St. Louis. We'll take a look at both of those games. We'll start with the women's game. Both these teams had great weekends, Jace.
Absolutely. I mean, going 2-0, both squads on the two games on Thursday and Saturday. It was a phenomenal weekend for UINDY basketball, and both teams are taking a big step right now into the postseason coming up here in a month.
And taking a look at this UINDY versus Maryville game, Jada Patton, Alana Wells, you see them, and Patricia Shikamba hopping in. An interesting story we learned about her this past weekend. She was actually a walk-on in her first year at the school. We just saw her kind of come into the mix in that second semester last year, and we're seeing spot minutes from her last year, and now she is a key player, not only in this rotation, but almost a starter in some games, and we're seeing 9-9, about 8-8 in the stat sheet. She's having one heck of a season.
I mean, she started the last two games, both Thursday and Saturday at Missouri S&T and Maryville, and in both games had a huge impact, mostly on the boards. I believe she had 12 boards against Missouri S&T, 9 against Maryville, and she's one of the main players now, and one of the main reasons the Greyhounds are the best boarding team in GLVC.
A lot of great performances. Alana Wells at Maryville, if I'm not mistaken, 9 for 11, near perfect shooting for her, and a 26-point effort. Add 3 rebounds, 3 assists, not too shabby there for Alana. We move over to the men's game now, where they also had a very successful weekend. First in Rolla, a tough game that went into overtime, and then here at Maryville, where it was a defensive effort throughout. Yeah,
both teams, the top two teams in the GLVC defensively, and it showed throughout the first half or so. The Greyhounds getting off to another slow start. That's been a theme recently for the men's team, is getting off to a slow start and then coming back into the game. But it was a lot of Paul Zelinskis that led the way coming out of the halftime break.
And we mentioned that's the slow start. I don't know if it was the fact that they didn't come out like locked in, as they'd like to say. I think it was more of these teams feeling each other out. Like you said, 2 of the best defensive teams in the conference. So it's not like you're coming out and playing, some NAIA school, some team that you should go out and win by 30, which, we've seen this season. I think took some feeling out. They got it done a couple minutes into the game. And then that second half, they really shut the door. The defense reigned supreme for the Greyhounds. And we're seeing some efforts from guys that aren't necessarily in that starting 5 that are really starting to progress throughout the season.
Namely, Sean Craig. We weren't used to seeing him getting those clutch minutes late in the game, but now recently he's been able to provide that effort on defense as getting them the wins. He doesn't always stuff the stat sheet per se, but he does those little things that gets the team these wins.
Jesse Bingham 16-4, Paul Zelinskis with 17-7. Those two guys becoming a dynamic duo. Jace, what do you make of that?
I mean, this is what we expected. Zelinskis coming out of Quincy, probably the biggest transfer in the GLVC, because he was first team all GLVC last season, came over to the Greyhounds, and now they're providing that dynamic guard duo that we expected all season long. Obviously, it took some time, as it does with transfers, but now they're really showing why they are the best guard duo in the conference.
I believe that as well. We've seen the best from both of these guys to this point, and I think if you ask Coach Corsaro, there's another level to the squad. Where do you think that might be?
I mean, they're starting to get to that level now. Obviously, it was a slow start to the season. Now they've come back. Now they're 10-2 in the conference. They've won a lot of games recently, and they're making their way towards that first seed in the GLVC tournament. But they're still a level behind, I think, to where they could be. Obviously, they began the year ranked 5th or 6th in the nation, somewhere around that area for a reason, because they have a talented squad. They haven't fully put together yet, but the defense is showing, and if the offense starts doing what they can do, game in, game out, they're going to be almost unstoppable come postseason time.
So we'll take a step back and once again look at the women's team as we're in that latter third of the season. What do their postseason hopes look like?
So right now they're 6th in the conference, the top 8 in the GLVC. They make the GLVC tournament. Right now they're 6th. They were 7th in the weekend, and they won those 2 games. Now they're up to 6th. They're right behind the 5th seed as well. And they have a fairly easy schedule next 2 games. They have Upper Iowa and Truman State on Thursday and Saturday, 2 bottom feeders in the GLVC this year on the women's side. So win those 2 games, they should be right in that 6-5 slot in the GLVC tournament.
And as for the men's team, to say that this upcoming slate would be easy, you'd be very mistaken. Upper Iowa, they're top 2, right there with Indianapolis in the conference. That is going to be one of the one of the biggest games of the season.
Probably the biggest so far.
Upper Iowa on Thursday.
Probably the biggest so far. Upper Iowa is a game behind the Greyhounds. Obviously, with the point system, it's a little bit different in the GLVC, but they're still first. The Greyhounds are above Upper Iowa because the Peacocks, they just lost at home to McKendree over the weekend, and that made them fall behind the Greyhounds because they were above them before that. But then on Thursday, when they face, that might be for the first seed in the conference.
The Greyhounds, a successful weekend for them. We're going to look to have some players on, maybe even a coach right here on Last Call to talk with them. But that does it for UINDY Sports for right now. We're going to hop in to the Super Bowl. After this break, you'll get our picks. What's going to happen next on Last Call?
Emma Donnan, elementary and middle school. Discover the Donnan difference. A school where you can celebrate others. Come together as a community. Be a part of a learning environment where students and teachers are appreciated. Emma Donnan, a culture that can't be beat that's going onward together. A school filled with love. Emma Donnan.
I love my school.
It's Super Bowl week. 2 teams heading to Vegas, one out of the NFC and the 49ers, one out of the AFC and the Chiefs. Honestly, these are probably the 2 best teams in the league. There was no conference I think super outweighed the other, at least when you come down to the final 2. 49ers Chiefs were set up for a movie to end it all. And I think the way we want to break this down is through position battles, right? So we'll go through the quarterback play, the run game, the passing game, the defense, and finally the coaching. See if we can balance the scales, tip it one way into who has the advantage heading into Sunday. So we'll start with the quarterback battle. You have Patrick Mahomes, as you see him handed off here to Isaiah Pacheco. Of course, he is playing Mr. Irrelevant on the other side of the field, and Brock Purdy. Well, if you're going to compare the careers thus far, obviously there's a clear winner in Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
But Mr. Irrelevant, this guy's no pushover. I mean, he had a great playoff run last year. Obviously,
I mean, he got hurt in that game as well against the Eagles, and they lost that one. This season stayed healthy, and now they're a Super Bowl team, so.
That's the thing, right? So it's experience versus, they've called him a game manager. You know, you're behind your coach and Kyle Shanahan and his playbook, and you're playing through that. But what we've seen from Brock Purdy in these playoffs, nothing short of remarkable. I think this guy, if he had happened to be on another team, you could consider this guy not elite, I don't think yet, but right at the tier under.
He's at that great level right now. Not the elite level, not the good level. He's just in the middle, kind of at that great level. Because, I mean, he's more than a game manager, in my opinion. We saw what he did in the NFC Championship, running the ball himself when nothing was open. And, I mean, they couldn't stop it.
And then Pat Mahomes, this guy is a gunslinger, but the question, at least in my eyes, about Mahomes is everyone around him, right? Is the offensive line going to hold up? Is his wide receiver crew going to come out and actually catch the ball? I mean, there was, I don't want to call it a scandal, but a controversy last week when Kadarius Toney was marked as injured and out when he came out on Twitter saying, I feel just fine. So obviously there's some stress in that wide receiver room, but you do have one of the best receivers in Travis Kelce. How much do you think that Pat Mahomes controls his own fate in this one?
I think he really does, because the receivers, they don't always get open. It's more about him getting the ball into the exact right spot sometimes. But we've seen that receiver core kind of open up a bit more in the playoffs, namely Rashee Rice. I think he's a rookie receiver. He's been phenomenal these playoffs. 3 touchdowns. He's been great for the Chiefs so far. I mean, him and Kelce, they've shown a pretty good duo. Now that Rice is kind of figuring out his career as a rookie. And he's gotten some open looks now because teams are focusing on Kelsey. They have to occasionally double, and that opens up Rice as the receiver one to get open sometimes.
So in the quarterback battle, I think it's fair to say that the Chiefs will go ahead and take that one with Pat Mahomes. We hopped into the wide receiver room a little bit. Let's stick right there. You have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, considering he may or may not
Probably won't
be injured. Probably one of the best receivers in the league, and Travis Kelce. And on the other side, there's Debo,
Brandon
Kittle.
Ayuk.
Exactly. So how do you stack those two?
It's San Fran's winning that receiver battle all day long. They even have a Jawan Jennings, who I like personally. He's not as high level as Ayuk or Debo, but I like Jawan Jennings as like a third, fourth receiver option for Brock Purdy. But you look at the talent on both sides, it's San Fran heavily. Because you think Ayuk and Debo both over Rashee Rice. Kittle and Kelsey, you can argue probably be Kelsey in that scenario, because Kittle's not as much of a a receiving tight end as much as Kelsey is.
Yeah.
Because Kittle can block as well. Kelsey really isn't that blocker that he's going to go out and block for the run game every time.
My take on that, obviously there's more talent in that San Fran locker room when it comes to their receiving core. But I feel like Travis Kelce and the relationship that he has with Pat Mahomes, I feel like that's the best duo in the league. And I don't even think it's anywhere close.
I agree.
I don't think anybody comes close. So when you look at the Kansas City passing game, they can march on anybody. And they have marched on anybody. I mean, they marched on Baltimore, who was supposed to have a great defense. They marched through the AFC and without many problems, in all honesty. So I think who has the better passing game, it's probably going to be, in my opinion, the Kansas City Chiefs. Even though they have more talent in that receiving room, Pat Mahomes is the quarterback. I mean, this guy's ability to scramble, run when he needs to, which, I mean, that takes a lot of pressure off of your receivers, right? I mean, this guy's ability to move around the pocket. You have time to get open, and Travis Kelce, I think, could be the X factor in this one. I tip the scales in favor of the Kansas City passing game.
For the passing game, you favor them just because of the relationship between Mahomes and Kelce?
Purely, almost purely.
I'm going to go based more off talent and what I think they can do in the Super Bowl with the Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle all being top-tier receivers in the league. I think that passing game will favor San Fran in this one.
So now we'll move to the run game. So you have C-Mac on one side behind Trent Williams and that offensive front. I think the run game is simple. I think it's simple. The 49ers, they might just run all over the Chiefs.
No, I absolutely agree. But the Chiefs, they have a pretty good D-line with Chris Jones standing there and Karlaftis from Purdue. He's been really good this season. It's going to be tougher to run on the Chiefs' defense than it was previous defenses for the Niners, but I think they'll still have that 100 yards for CMC probably. But the Chiefs
and a touchdown.
But the Chiefs' run game, you cannot underestimate the Chiefs' run game this year. That's been one of the reasons they've been competitive in some of these games. Isaiah Pacheco has been a superstar. In all honesty, they say he runs angry at the ground. I mean, he really does.
Is that offensive line holding up though?
I mean, it's been a lot better than it was. What was it, 3 years ago when it didn't hold up at all in the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers? It's been a lot better than that. And Pacheco, he's proven that he can make the plays when need be on the run game.
But you got guys coming through the middle, coming off the edge. Nick Bosa, I can see this guy chasing Pat Mahomes around the entire game.
Also Chase Young, who hasn't been as good as they thought he would be since the trade from Washington, but he's still there and can make an impact on the Chiefs O-line because they have to commit more numbers towards him.
So tipping the scales in that matchup of the run game, 49ers?
I think so. I think slightly. I think people underestimate the Chiefs' run game, and it might be competitive with San Fran's run game, but I think San Fran's slightly ahead of Kansas City in that aspect.
And now we hop into defense. Your take on those two squads, how they stack up against each other?
They're both really good defenses. I mean, you look at the Chiefs' defense, they're a lot better than anyone thought they would be.
I think they're underrated too.
They're one of, I'd say, a top 5 defense in the NFL this year. Because you look at Justin Reed, Drew Tranquill, they have plenty of players to go around in the corners and linebackers and D-line that can match up fairly well with the receivers of San Fran. But look at San Fran and the talent they have. Charvarius Ward at the corner position, Nick Bosa, Chase Young, the linebacker, Fred Warner. They have a lot of talent. Both teams have a lot of talent. I think San Fran's defense is slightly better than Chiefs, but it's really close in my opinion.
I feel like the Chiefs have a lot of their talent in the box, in that linebacker core, on that front four. But in the secondary, which is where Patrick Mahomes can really hurt your defense, I think that's where the 49ers might, kind of let up. Not let up, but that might be their weak spot. heading into this game, whereas the Chiefs, it might be the opposite, right? I mean, we saw them work very well in the secondary. I mean, the only receiver that did anything for Baltimore was Zay Flowers. Even Zay Flowers diving into the end zone and had a fumble.
And Baltimore's court receiver is really underrated. They have a pretty good receiving room, and the Chiefs just shut it down. Lamar had nowhere to go with the ball all game. So if they're able to shut down that of Debo and Ayuk, the Chiefs are going to roll over San Fran.
And it's also important to note that the 49ers let the Packers run all over them. Mm-hmm. They let the Packers run all over them.
San Fran's D-line has been iffy in these playoff games.
But the Packers did against the Cowboys, too, who are supposed to be an amazing defense as well. Pairing these two up, I might give it to the Chiefs. Chiefs. The way that they isolated Lamar Jackson, probably the hardest quarterback in the league to guard just due to his ability to get out of the pocket, scramble, and throw. One of the toughest offenses to kind of game plan for. I think that gives them the upper hand heading into Sunday. I think if it comes down to defense, Kansas City might have it.
I still think San Fran's defense is slightly better. I think the Chiefs' defense has outperformed them in the playoffs. But when it comes to making big-time plays, I'll favor San Fran's defense in that one. But the Chiefs' defense, you're right, they're up there definitely because they did isolate Lamar Jackson very well. But Lamar didn't do as much as he probably could have in that game. He didn't run the ball as much as he should have that game. He had the spots to do so, but he was forcing throws downfield. And that was more on Lamar than it was, I think, the Chiefs' defense outperforming the Ravens in that one.
And then finally, two coaches that are going to go down in the books. Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, with 2 weeks to game plan, considering this weekend was the Pro Bowl. Who do you think, if it comes down to coaching, you're in that 2-minute drill scenario, who gets it done for their squad?
Probably Andy Reid. He's been here before. He's won
I think that's
2
a lot
or 3
of it too.
Super Bowls. I mean, Shanahan, he's been to the big game before, but look who he lost to, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Andy Reid. That's my pick as well. But now, how about we take a look at who we think is going to win it all? This is for all the marbles. Man, this is a game. Two very, very talented squads. As you see it. Do you see it? The man in the cowboy hat. That's me. I'm over there with the 49ers. I think Kansas City gives them a game, but C-Mac on the ground, Brock Purdy turning into elite quarterback under center, and then those front seven in the box. They're going to give Kansas City nightmares. I think you look back to that game where Pat Mahomes played Tom Brady, the one Super Bowl that he lost in that scenario. He was on the run. He had nobody to throw to. Offensive line didn't hold up. Same scenario on Sunday. 49ers take it.
I think we'll see a flip-flop of what we saw 4 years ago. Because 4 years ago, we saw the Chiefs. They were down early. They came back, and they won this game. I think early, the Chiefs are going to come out and dominate the San Fran. But I think come second half, San Fran's going to throw it on them. I think Purdy's going to have an amazing game. Brock Purdy is going to be your Super Bowl MVP. San Fran's going to win this one.
You look good, Jace.
Thanks.
You look good. We look good over there on that gold helmet. You heard it here first. San Francisco will take it on Sunday. Score prediction?
31-27.
31-27. Well, 35-31. 35-31.
High-scoring football.
I think it's going to be high scoring. But we're not done with this episode just yet. We have the NBA coming up, All-Star Weekend in a couple weeks, and some Pacers news to recap right here on the Last Call.
So the overall mission here at Flanner House Indy is to help with the development and growth, the self-efficiency and self-sufficiency of the near northwest side of Indianapolis. When the Double Eights closed in the area, that left the near northwest side a food desert. So Brandon Cosby, the executive director of Flanner House, started with the Flanner House Farms, where they grow fresh produce organically for the neighborhood around. And then later on down the line, Cleo's came about. So we're here to help with the sustainability of getting fresh food at cheap prices to the locals around. Black owned, black ran. That's the gist of Cleo's for the most part.
Obviously, the Super Bowl, the biggest news this week, but right here in the Circle City in Indianapolis, big news in a couple weeks, the All-Star game, but the Pacers playing right here in Indianapolis. They took the court against the Hornets, who have really fell flat this year. I mean, through injury, through just lack of player development, through the draft, or anything like that. Pacers, on the other hand, they look really good.
This is one that they needed to get. Coming off a 3-game losing streak, Halliburton still on a minutes restriction against a bottom feeder, and we've seen the Pacers against bottom feeders this year not really show what they can do against those big-time teams that they've shown. We've seen them against Portland. They got swept by Portland. We've seen them against Charlotte. They lost to Charlotte at one point in the season as well. They finally were able to really dominate a full game against a bottom team in the NBA here. I mean, the Hornets started coming back there in the fourth quarter. It was a 10-point game, but the Pacers were able to pour it on in the end and get the win. But they had to have this one.
It's little things like that I'm not convinced about this Pacer team, right? Because you'll go play the Rockets or you'll go play the Pistons, and it'll be way too close.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? With an all-star and a possible MVP candidate in Tyrese Halliburton, you're letting teams like the Hawks, get in the way of some easy wins. I think a lot of it is due to the fact that this team still has yet to figure out the situation on defense. Pascal Siakam has been a good add to that. He had 25, 9, and 8 with Aaron Nesmith, a cool 22 and 8 as well. A lot of it's going to come to the role players stepping up. I feel like that bench is going to lean heavy heading into the rest of the season.
I mean, I think this is the first game all season long that Indiana has allowed less than 100 points. So that's a good starting point. But I think head coach Rick Carlisle put out his best lineup of the season, starter-wise. It was Andrew Nembhard, Halliburton, Nesmith, Turner, and Siakam. I think defensively, that's your best starting 5 because Nembhard and Nesmith are 2 really good defensive players. And I think that's the best squad that Carlisle can put out there for defense. And scoring as well. There's still some scoring in there because you see Aaron Nesmith. He's been a stud this year, in all honesty.
He's great.
These last 5-6 games, he's been a really good player and maybe a most improved player candidate coming into the season. Aaron Nesmith, he's been phenomenal. Obviously, we're still waiting for Halliburton to get fully healthy. There's been a lot of injury problems with Pacers. Turner been out for a little bit. Matherinson still some injury problems. I think once they get fully healthy and get that chemistry right, they'll be a top 5-4 team in the Eastern Conference.
And that's another thing that I'm struggling with this Pacer team, because the way that they've gone through this Halliburton rehab process, what are we doing?
It's been weird because you play Halliburton the first game Siakam's here in Portland, and I think he re-aggravated the injury doing that. He came back too soon, way too soon for a hamstring strain in my opinion, and then didn't play 5 games after that because he was rehabbing still. I don't even know how they did that.
I think this Pacers team this front office is jumping the gun. I think they're jumping the gun with Tyrese Halliburton. If he's not healthy, he doesn't need to play. He doesn't need to play a quarter, 2, 3. He doesn't need to play if he's not healthy. This is a guy that we want to see in Indy for years and years to come. I mean, 10 plus if possible. This is his 3rd, 4th year?
I think
and
yeah.
This guy's getting it done. He's in MVP conversations, and you want to throw it away for, a 4 or 5 seed if they play really great with Halliburton every game. I mean, that hamstring strain is no
it's no
small
joke.
deal.
It's no joke. Those are tough to come back from, especially in that short amount of time that he came back in. Because he came back that Portland game, I'm like, why is he playing? He shouldn't be playing in this game. And he played way too long in that game as well. And you could see he was wincing at the end of that one because I think he re-aggravated it then. That's why he didn't play the next 5 games. And even now, he's playing on a minutes restriction, but he still doesn't look like he was before the injury so far. I think they're rushing it way too fast.
And as we're talking, I'm thinking this new rule with awards, right? You can't win MVP, any accolade such as that, if you miss 12.
I think it's 65 games played, so 17.
And you already have players like Joel Embiid, Tyrese Halliburton, who...
Halliburton can't miss 3 more games or he's done.
And we're halfway through the season, Jace. Halfway through the season.
And that's for all NBA. This is for career-changing accolades that could make you bank.
Tyrese Halliburton, just for context, has $40 million on the line in terms of contract negotiations. Because if he reaches that All-NBA team, that qualifies him for a Supermax. And as you said, if he misses 3 more, then the guy's done. So maybe that criticism doesn't belong to the front office, but more so to the NBA as a whole, right?
I think the NBA kind of needs to look at that and tweak it a little bit, because I think injuries, that happens. That's part of the league. It's part of sports. I think they did that more for the players don't sit out and rest when they're healthy, but it's also affecting those players that are all NBA level and just got an unfortunate injury at the wrong time. I think they need to tweak it to a certain amount of rest games and a certain amount of injury games, to where it's not just the same amount per.
There's so many guys in the league dealing with that. A lot of those guys are going to be right here in Indianapolis for the All-Star game coming up in a couple weeks as we take a look at the starters and reserves in that squad. We'll read off the starters to you. For the East, you got Giannis, Embiid, Halliburton, Lillard, and Jason Tatum, considering they're all healthy going into that. And
I don't think Embiid will be, because Embiid's about to have surgery for, I think, a knee injury he had.
Yeah, I think he's
he won't be in this game, so we'll see a backup starter, maybe either like Bam, Banchero, or whatever the reserves have in store for us. We'll see those in a second. But I'm surprised that Lillard got the nod to start. Obviously, you consider this more as a popularity contest sometimes. I think Brunson deserved it more than Lillard did.
I was just going to say that, Jace. I was just going to say that. Why is Jalen Brunson not in this lineup? Why? Jalen Brunson.
He's outperformed Lillard by a lot this season, in my opinion.
I think he's better than Tyrese Halliburton.
Okay, see, now you're going a bit far. Now you're going a bit far.
I think Jalen Brunson is top 2 guard in the East. Jalen Brunson is that guy. Jalen Brunson is a bucket, and he proved it. I mean, when he played the Pacers, this guy dog-walked us. In New York, of course, but Jalen Brunson is that guy. Jalen Brunson deserves to be an all-star starter. He's not. He's in the reserves, which you have Bam, Banchero, Jaylen Brown, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, and Randall. But Jalen Brunson deserves to be up there. That's my 2 cents.
I agree with Brunson being a starter over Lillard. Him and Halliburton, that's a great debate to have, in my opinion. It's one of the top debates right now in the NBA, is who's the best point guard in the East. Is it Brunson? Is it Halliburton? It's up in the air.
We'll move now to the Western Conference, where we see the starters and LeBron, Luka, Kevin Durant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Nikola Jokic. And I think, for the most part,
I think I got this right.
This 5, I mean, I don't see who else you go with. LeBron, he's always going to be on there because it's LeBron James.
It's LeBron.
And the guy's 47 years old, putting up splits that we haven't seen from
it shouldn't be possible at
anybody.
that age. It shouldn't be. What he's doing shouldn't be possible at this age. But I'm glad that Shai got the recognition he deserves, because he is a top guard, maybe the top guard in the NBA at some points. And he's top 2 right now in MVP conversations. So I'm glad that the NBA is recognizing that with an all-star starter spot.
Him, Jokic up there. Kevin Durant, I mean, this guy's a bucket. He's always going to be up there. Luka, he's putting up crazy splits.
I think this is the exact right 5 that they got here.
The guy that you might look at who did not get the nod, Devin Booker. Devin Booker, who was averaging somewhere around 45 the past couple weeks after a 60-point game, and then some.
But you look at all this talent, and are you going to put D-Book over either Luka or Shai?
That's the thing. That's where it gets tough.
The West is very guard heavy.
Because I don't think you put him over Shai at all. I don't think he's anywhere near Shai right now. Luka, the problem with Luka's too consistent.
Yeah.
Luka's too consistent to put
Luka does
Devin
40
Booker
every night. It's just
over
Luka.
him. And when the Suns are dropping games too, the Suns I don't feel are where they should be. With just a couple minutes left, why don't we take a look at those standings? First for the East. Up top, you have Boston, Milwaukee. I think those two might trade that spot here and there.
I don't think so. I think Boston's going to have that once they come to the end of the season. Milwaukee's slacking a bit behind right now. They just lost to the Utah Jazz. They don't look right with Doc Rivers as head coach right now. That wasn't the right hire. I don't think Doc Rivers. He's not going to be that guy that gets you to an NBA championship.
As the 1 seed, you fire your head coach.
Yeah.
You fire. Some front office questions in the NBA, but we'll move to the West. As for now, to break down what's going on in there.
Very top heavy. Look at those first 4 within 1 game of each other. That top 4 is wild.
I mean, OKC, that's why you can't move Shai out of that lineup.
No.
Shai, the best player on that squad, first in the West. Minnesota, you don't see Ant or Cat on those starters, but both of them in the reserves. Clippers, best game since December 1st in the NBA. Hey, that's the team that I want.
They're going to win it all, in my opinion.
Go see. You think so?
I think right now they have the best roster in the NBA. I think they're better than Boston just slightly.
Wow.
I think Clippers-Boston is going to be your NBA Finals. It's going to be a 7-game series. Clippers take it in Boston, Game 7. That's my pick right now, at least.
You know, that's a question that we'll save because I do want to get into that. Clippers and Boston, stars on every squad. Stars right here in the desk. Caden Colford, Jace Hodge. This is Last Call, the Super Bowl. Let's get to it next week.